Most people think that you need to be super rich either with a trust fund or hundreds of thousands in the bank to actually go sailing, but that is not true. My name's Max. I've sailed over 40,000 miles by this point. In my early 20s, I crossed the Atlantic both ways on a 22-foot boat on an absolute shoestring. After that, I bought and rebuilt Elixir, and since then I've sailed halfway around the world from the UK to New Zealand as part of a self-funded circumnavigation, a commercially endorsed yacht master, professional captain, marine engineer, and after doing this for 10 years, I built a system that I wish I had when I started. My first boat, Flying Cloud, the most beautiful boat you've ever seen, by the way, was 500 pounds, and I sailed her from the UK across the Atlantic to the Caribbean and back again via the Azores. And that whole trip I did on an absolute shoestring. I was like 21, so on a huge budget, but yeah, I made it work. By the way, this video is a bit different from my usual sailing videos. The purpose of this one is to just share information and what I've learned over the past 10 years of sailing around the world. Boat ownership is actually more of a spectrum, with the lower end of the spectrum where you have a small budget, not much room for space or comfort, and you need a lot of focus. And then high budget, you can afford more space, more comfort, and you don't need as much focus because you can pay for it. I'm gonna break it down into 3 tiers of boat ownership: the entry level, lower budget, the mid tier like Elixir, and then the higher level, higher budget boats. If you're on a budget and you still want to go offshore sailing but you're concerned about how much it's going to cost, then I think this video is for you. If you're in the market for like a luxury catamaran, then maybe there's not so much valuable information in this video for you, but you should watch it anyway. Tier 1, entry level, 20 to 30 foot boats. I've actually met a ton of people in like their 20s who have bought, you know, boats smaller than 30 foot for less than 10 grand, and they've just gone. They've just figured it out, learned their boat, you know, it's small, it's achievable, like everything's like cheap and easy to fix, and it's all actually pretty basic once you get your head around it. And they've just gone, crossed oceans. I mean, I did it when I was literally 20. I left the UK on a 22-foot boat, which is very small, and I've met a bunch of other people that have done the same thing. So if you're young, like you're in your 20s or even in your 30s, you have a small budget but you really want to go, then you just have to buy a small boat. I think Lynn Pardy, who's a sailing legend, her catchphrase was like, go smaller, go cheaper, go now. It's like, that's so true. That's real generational wisdom when it comes to sailing, and she is a true sailing legend. So I think it's solid advice that if you want to go sailing now, you're on a budget, then you just have to get a small boat. It's just the easiest way to do it for sure. I think if you're just eager to get into the sailing lifestyle, buy a 20-something footer. Doesn't cost that much, especially if you're like a young person. It's a great way to just get out on the water. You make your mistakes when the consequences are still low. Obviously, I'm not encouraging you to like go out and cross an ocean if you're not experienced, but you can still buy a boat and learn how to sail in a safe way on a small boat. It's a really good way to do it, and it's what I did. So I'm sure there's a lot of you watching that really want to turn this sailing dream into a reality, but you don't know where to start. Maybe it's a little bit overwhelming. Well, that is why I created the Untied Sailing Club. It is especially for you. In there's a masterclass where I talk about all of the information that you need to go from a complete beginner to owning a boat, buying a boat, gaining this sailing experience, and then setting sail to cross an ocean. It's essentially a culmination of everything I've learned, all of the mistakes I've made, and the idea is that you don't have to make them, and you're going to spend less money and time on the whole process. I talk about all of the budgets and hidden costs that go into buying a boat, and there's also a very supportive community of people doing the exact same thing. There's a toolkit full of maintenance plans, checklists, and all of the stuff that I use on Elixir. Supportive community 24/7 of people who are going to help you out. If you have any problem, you'll be able to get an answer for it and a solution. Yeah, a ton of crewing opportunities, like cheap boat listings. There's so much good stuff in there. If you're interested, then check out the link in the description in my bio. And yeah, tier 2, we're talking 30 to 40 foot boats like Elixir. My boat, I'm currently reefing her right now. She is an S&S Swan 37. In my opinion, the perfect boat for a circumnavigation. Why? Because of the size. You know, she's a nice size. She's got 3 cabins, so it's quite comfortable for 3 people. She's got all of the systems that you need: water maker, inverters, ovens, fridges, and like enough space with a head and a shower. So like, you know, she's like modest, but there's enough room in here, and yeah, affordable. Like, I left when I was 24, so obviously I didn't have so much money to spend, but I could just about afford to keep her going. And she's solid, you know, she's seaworthy, like a really good boat. So I think she's a good example of this like mid-range, mid-tier level of boat. There's so many other examples, and I think around 35 foot is the perfect compromise between size and cost. If you're like, you know, let's say you have a budget of like 20 grand, 30 grand, maybe up to 50 grand, it's like, yeah, you want to get a boat like around the 35 foot range, because anything above 40 foot is like you're paying, like you're gonna start paying double for like sales and everything. So yeah, I think 35 is such a good compromise. If you're a couple, then it's like, surely just get something smaller than 40 foot, because it doesn't make sense to just spend more money unless you really have a budget for like size and comfort. And then that brings me on to the final tier, is like 40 plus is kind of like high level. So we're talking like you're gonna have a budget of probably more than 100k, and if you don't, then you're going to end up spending more than that, because it costs a lot to maintain a boat of that size. If it's more than 3 people on board, then yeah, sure, like more than 40 foot is a good size. Or if you just need that extra level of comfort, then yeah, go bigger than 40 foot. But if you're concerned about money and you are on a budget, then you wouldn't be looking at boats more than 40 foot. But yeah, they're good, you know, you get a ton of comfort, you have fridges, freezers, and like loads of room for all of your friends, but yeah, you spend for it. So I think if you're starting out, you're on a budget, then yeah, entry level like 20 foot to 30 foot is like so good, because you can just go. You can just buy that boat, fix it really easily and quickly and cheaply, and just go. If you want, you know, like a nice compromise between like comfort and space without spending too much, then up to 40 foot is great, especially if you're doing a circumnavigation, like a really good size. If you've got a big budget, you know, like at least more than 50, 60k, you know, close to 100k, then yeah, maybe go for a like 40 footer, because you get way more comfort, way more systems, you can have loads of crew on board. Alright, so we've spoken about boat ownership being this spectrum. You have like the small, cheap, easy to maintain 20 footers down here, and then up here you have 40 foot plus, more expensive, more technical. But obviously the cost of purchasing a boat isn't the only cost. You have like the yearly maintenance costs. You're going to be, there's just, the maintenance never stops, so you're always going to be paying for the boat. And I think a good rule of thumb is like 10 to 15% of the value of the boat each year is what you need to spend on maintenance. For Elixir, it's, you know, like around 10,000 US dollars a year I will spend on just like maintaining the boat and looking after the boat. And yeah, I think most of the time that's generally enough. Some years there's more, like the last year for example I've spent way more because I've done this huge refit and installed loads of new systems, but hopefully going forwards I'll be spending much less. And yeah, another advantage of having a small boat, cheap to buy, cheap to maintain, and it just makes going sailing so much easier when you don't have to worry about these like big expensive systems. Yeah, so people are always asking how I pay for it all, or how can you sustain this cruising lifestyle, like sailing for long periods of time. And yeah, everyone has different ways of doing it. For me, I have my professional sailing qualification, so I help other people with their boats, whether that's deliveries, charters. I'm also an avid writer, so I write for like various sailing magazines and sailing publications, and social media as well. I have 1 million followers on social media across all of the platforms, and that's another form of revenue stream for me, just monetizing that. So yeah, those are the 3 ways that I do it, but then there's so many different ways different people do it. I've seen all sorts of ways of people like funding and sustaining the lifestyle using Starlink, physically working in different countries. There's lots of different ways to do it. You just have to find out the way that works for you, but getting sailing qualifications is a good way to start. And yeah, I hope this helps, and I would love it if you left a comment and said what you would like me to make a video about next. And yeah, if you're serious about pursuing this dream and want to do it in the quickest, cheapest, safest way possible, then check out the Untied Sailing Club in the description, and I will see you out there. I also want to say that we have just launched a 7-day free trial for the Untied Sailing Club, so you can join for free. Go and check it out, and if you don't like it, you can just cancel without having to pay anything. It's all good, so yeah, go and check it out.